For many years, I found myself feeling super annoyed anytime a stranger would call me anything like babe or hun or sweetie or whatever. It didn't matter if the stranger was male or female or whether they were older or younger than me. One day a few years ago, after once again being called honey by a virtual stranger, I was thrown for a real loop. I was left questioning everything that I knew to be true about myself and my life. No kidding. I was in the grocery store checkout line while being checked out by a really sweet lady who looked like she was probably in her 80s. We'd been chatting like old friends as she rang up my order, as I tend to do with random people in the world, and by the end of the transaction, she smiled and she said, "Here's your change, honey." Well, involuntarily in that moment, my body reacted, and I was instantly feeling triggered. Not so much that I had any sort of external reaction, just kind of a brief negative little that went through me. Well, that tiny, seemingly insignificant interaction would go on to affect me in a way that would literally change my whole life. See, as I drove home that day, I thought about why I had reacted that way when this sweet little checkout lady had called me honey. I mean, what was that about? Made no sense. In that moment, I remembered that growing up, a certain female narcissist in my life once told me that she felt insulted when almost anyone except her husband used terms of endearment with her like honey or sweetie or baby. She said it made her feel like they thought she was somehow less than them or like they were being fake nice. Well, since I was probably about 10 years old when I heard this, I took it as a fact rather than an opinion. It stuck with me, this woman's perception, and I carried it with me throughout my own life for a long time. Subconsciously, I had accepted and lived someone else's perception rather than forming my own perception about this tiny little thing. In fact, this little issue has actually clouded other areas of my life as well over the years. For example, I used to always believe that people around me had ulterior motives, or they weren't genuine in some way. Suddenly, when I took just a moment to question my long-held beliefs, it occurred to me that these beliefs existed primarily because of perceptions that were taught to me by other people. So let me ask you, do you believe what you think you believe? And are you who you think you are? I don't know about you, but I can sure think of a lot of different perceptions that I carried through my life about both myself and the world around me without even realizing it, many of which came from an unfortunate source. And when we've been in relationships with narcissists of any type, our perceptions are more likely to be twisted than not. So let me ask you again, do you really believe what you think you believe? Are you who you think you are? Can you relate to my story at all? If you can, stick with me because this is exactly what we're talking about today at queenbeing.com. How to stop letting a narcissist tell you who you are and define you, plus the inevitable existential crisis that many of us experience after a toxic relationship with a narcissist, what it looks like, what to expect from it, and how to get through it in the healthiest possible way. So let's get started. Growing up, we form our opinions of the world almost subliminally. We gather up the information that's fed to us from our parents, our teachers, our friends, the television, and we decide what we believe about ourselves, about the world around us, and the people in the world around us, life in general, based on that stuff. Sometimes it can be an okay thing, but when we've been affected by toxic narcissists in relationships, it could become a real problem. See, we're taught that we don't have any value. We're taught that we don't matter, that we're not good enough, and that somehow we're less than other people. And then sometimes we end up with some pretty messed up ideas of what we think we believe and who we think we are. And the worst part is we don't even always know exactly why we think this kind of stuff. For example, as it turns out, I really don't mind if strangers use terms of endearment with me. I don't think it's anything to get upset about. That's just some people's way of being nice people. It doesn't mean they think less of me, and if it does, do I actually care? Not really. So for probably 25 years, I held on to this unnecessary bit of negativity just because I accepted someone else's perception without questioning it. I had actually allowed the narcissist in my life to tell me who I was, and I was living it. And for me, what a big shocker that was. Have you ever let a narcissist tell you who you are? I'll tell you what, I always say that going through narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships and choosing to heal intentionally, it gives us this little silver lining that most people don't have. There's this evolution that happens among us that's different than the one everyone else in the world experiences. See, with intentional healing, we can actually become sort of more tuned in than the average person. And what I mean by that is that despite, or maybe because of, the pain we experience and the resulting decision to heal ourselves on purpose, we almost inevitably evolve to a place of understanding and a sort of connection that people who don't go through similar trauma will ever even need to reach. And somehow, this is that silver lining. This, of course, leads me to the old familiar phrase, everything happens for a reason. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I truly don't know if there is some innate purpose in everything that happens in our lives. But what I do know for sure is that we can choose our own perspective and perception intentionally. And by doing that, we can also shape and reshape our own reality. Yeah. I didn't always know that. In fact, I realized as I navigated the choppy waters of narcissistic abuse recovery that it is the understanding of perspective and intentional vibration management that leads us to the kind of clarity most people can't imagine. And in that clarity, we can find healing. We can learn to self-validate, and we can understand empathy and compassion on a whole new level. Not only do we grow more sure of ourselves and who we are, and more confident in our ability to stand up and say what we believe, but we also better understand what we want and what we deserve in life when we're healed. And when we're really getting our evolution underway, we might even recognize that we are capable of creating most any change we desire in this life. And we go about manifesting our ideal life on purpose. It's a beautiful thing. The thing is that we are all human. And in order to genuinely manifest exactly what we want in our lives and what we deserve, we first have to recognize the things that are blocking us from making things happen. This part can get really uncomfortable. It can lead us to a sort of cognitive dissonance that blows our minds and makes us kind of want to curl up in a ball in our beds, wrapped up in our blankets and rocking back and forth slowly. We aren't ready for it, our subconscious screams. We aren't ready to recognize, acknowledge, and accept our flaws and the things that we aren't willing to give up in order to make that ideal life happen. Maybe we've just become a little comfortable in our pain, or maybe we're not ready to let go of some limiting belief or mindset we're holding on to. Either way we reason, the risk of upsetting our lives feels too big, too great to rock the boat sometimes. The fact is that anything that risks rocking the boat, as in forcing you to make personal change you can't take back, or that feels scary or uncomfortable, well, it can leave you clinging tightly to what you know, what is familiar, in fear of what may come next. For example, none of us wants to be overweight, but when we want to lose weight, we can't just walk around and not change our lifestyle. Maybe we want to save money, but we find ourselves broke 2 days after payday every time. Well, in the first example, even just a tiny bit of willingness to change your lifestyle could eventually lead to big results over time. The fact is that you would need to be willing to get through the uncomfortable parts of the change required to get yourself back in shape, like adding exercise to your daily routine or eating more mindfully, for example. And as soon as you did those things, well, you would find yourself already enjoying the benefits of a healthier lifestyle, the least of which is weight loss. But just wanting to lose weight and not taking any inspired action, it's not going to get you anywhere. It's going to make you feel bad about yourself, no matter how much you complain about it and let it take over your brain. You see where I'm going with this? This, in recovery, seems to lead to a cognitive dissonance that leaves us spinning right into an existential crisis. Who are we? What do we believe? Do we even really know right now? We find ourselves questioning everything. Our thoughts, our beliefs, things we thought we knew for sure were true. We feel almost suspended in time, grasping for meaning. Were our whole lives a lie? Did we really even know what happened and what our part was in it all? After my childhood narcissist took those tiny betrayals a little too far, and I was sort of snapped back into reality with an almost literal slap in the face, I finally had enough, and I cut off all contact with her. It was around that time that, as I did go through the standard stages of grief during that initial separation period, I found myself growing as a person on a whole new level. My whole world sort of opened up. Suddenly, everything I believed to be true, especially about myself, could be reconsidered. Imagine. Now suddenly I realized that I was the one in control, that I could decide how it was going to go from here, and most of all, that I got to choose my own story. I was the one who got to define me. And guess what, my friend? You are the only one who gets to decide who you are. Do you feel me here? Only you. Not some abusive narcissist. When we have gone through a toxic relationship of any kind, we go through a time where we kind of have to rethink and develop a whole new understanding of literally everything in our lives up to this point. Now we see how everything has all been connected all along, how one event could have led to another, how invalidation led to a lack of awareness and a lack of self-love, and ultimately to toxic relationships with toxic people. We start to learn that we are actually worthy of being loved, and that we are worthy of being treated with compassion, and that we do not need to keep people in our lives who make us feel unlovable. We become empowered on a whole new level, and my friend, it is truly profound. It is a beautiful thing. But as beautiful as it can also be horribly uncomfortable. And it is in this discomfort that the existential crisis lies. This is also where stuff gets a lot more confusing. If you're not determined to push through this difficult part, it can prevent you from embracing your true power and from taking your true place in the world. You could stop right there if you wanted to. you've got some good skills in place. You probably won't get stuck with another toxic person because you've learned how to set your boundaries, right? And now you're aware that you have value, correct? But over time, you might find that you naturally develop even better ways to cope, even better ways to deal with the stuff that life throws your way. But here's the secret, my friend. You can do it much, much faster by simply putting your head down and pushing it forward with intention. See, the thing is that letting go of some of those beliefs, those limiting beliefs, it will open the door to unlimited potential. I'm not kidding. I really think that every single one of us is carrying around some limiting beliefs that we've picked up from others, including narcissists, along the way. I say it's time to shake things up. Just imagine the freedom you might feel if you could really eliminate, let go, and drop all of those negative perceptions that people have shoved in your head over the years. Think about how positive your days and your nights and your life would be if you did. After all, we do bring about what we think about. The more positive energy, the more gratitude, and the more general peace you can find in your life, the more amazing it will get. My challenge to you today is to identify and challenge at least one belief or perception you've always had, whether it's about yourself or something or someone outside of yourself. You can start small. Maybe you believe that your paper boy intentionally throws your paper in the mud puddle every time it rains, if you still have a paper boy. And maybe you want to just change your mind. Or you can start bigger. Maybe you believe that you really don't deserve to be happy. In either case, I want you to ask yourself, why do I feel that way? Is this logical? And my friend, you might be surprised at what you discover. So are you ready to challenge your negative perceptions and beliefs? Just a quick tip from me to you. Something I do with a lot of my clients is I will have them write down a list of all the things that they think about themselves that are negative, all the negative perceptions. They think they're unattractive, they think they're not good enough, whatever it is, I have them write it all down. And then during a session, we go through each one of those beliefs and we figure out first who taught you that. And then we figure out exactly what the truth is or what we want the truth to be. And so then the client will cross off the negative belief and write down their new truth. And the new truth becomes a form of affirmation for them. It can be a beautiful thing. Give it a shot if you haven't yet. All right, now this brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, can you relate here? Do you have beliefs or did you have beliefs that really weren't your own, that you kind of had shoved in your head by someone else? And will you or have you let go of those beliefs and changed your mind? Have you or are you working on evolving to that whole new level? Share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your experiences in the comment section below, and let's talk about it. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life, and hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. Now, before I go, make sure you take a look at the videos I'm leaving for you right here and right here. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button right over there so we can stay connected and continue on this healing journey together. I'll see you soon.